Good evening, everybody. My name is Amy France. I'm from the class of 2001, and I currently serve Gordon College as the Senior Director for Alumni Engagement. I want to welcome you to our first in the series of Alumni Talks. Alumni Talks is a series that is a partnership between both the Alumni Engagement Office and the Career and Connection Institute. We are now strategically located together in the same hallway within Jenks on the second floor, and we're really excited about all the opportunities for deepening your network and your connections over the course of the next year. We're really looking forward to the rest of this fall as we continue this Alumni Talk series and into the next semester as well. So tonight is the first one that we are going to focus on Alumni Talks, Media, and the Arts. And we have 4 wonderful alums as well as Professor Christy Gardner with us tonight. And so I'm going to invite all of our panelists to turn on their videos and unmute themselves so that they can be a part of the conversation tonight. Hi, folks. Welcome.
Hi. Hey.
Hi.
We're so excited to have you all with us, and I'd really love to kind of introduce each one of our panelists. And so I'm going to go through our alumni panelists first. We have Amber Dempsey, who is a 2013 alum. She's a marketing and communications manager with Plymouth Rock Assurance. Amber, can you just give a quick wave to everybody?
Hi, everyone.
And then we have Paul Crookston, who's a 2016 alum. He is a war room director with the Washington Free Beacon. And Paul, if you could just give a quick wave as well.
Hi, guys.
From the class of 2004, we have Sarah Gordon. She is an art director with Christianity Today. And then last but not least, for our alumni panelists, we have Andrew Frey, who is a 2016 alum, and he is a comprehensive campaign manager, which I bet you all want to know what that exactly means, with CCO Campus Ministry. Just say a quick hello, Andrew.
Hi.
Thanks. And then last but not least, we have Dr. Christy Gardner. She's an associate professor of the Communication Arts Department, and she is the chair of our Department of Communication Arts, Theater and Art. Christy has a wonderful resume, but she joined our Gordon faculty in January 2017, which is really exciting for me as well because I was a communication arts major when I was at Gordon. So it's wonderful to have Dr. Gardner a part of the program that I was originally a part of. And she most recently has served as a visiting professor with the Center for the Study of Religion and Society at the University of Notre Dame, where she continues to hold a visiting appointment. We want to just welcome you, Dr. Gardner.
Thank you, Amy. Really good to be with you all.
Excellent. Well, I'd love to start off pretty easy. I'm going to throw some easy balls at all of you folks. I'd love for you just to talk really briefly, maybe a quick 1 or 2 minute description, and maybe Amber, you can start us off with again just letting us know what you do and what your job is, where you work, and what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, sure. So I work at Plymouth Rock Assurance, which is a Northeastern insurance company. We handle auto and home insurance. And I work on the marketing communications team there and handle the day-to-day contacts with our sports partnerships and the sports teams that we have.
Great, thanks. Andrew, would you mind sharing a little bit more about your position?
Sure. Currently, I work for the CCO, which is the Coalition for Christian Outreach. It is a campus ministry organization. My role as comprehensive campaign manager is specifically in development, raising money for a capital campaign. So we are basically doubling our reach throughout the nation. I came there by way of voice performance at Gordon and then development at a musical theater company in the Pittsburgh area, which is specifically why I'm here in the arts and media panel. But.
Great, thanks, Andrew. Paul, what about for you? Could you share that same information?
Yeah, I am, as you mentioned, the War Room Director of the Washington Free Beacon. That just means that I handle rapid response stuff. So when breaking news happens, or when we need a clip of the president saying something, that sort of thing. We have actual reporters who dig deep into things, and my team handles things kind of as they happen. I came there by way of National Review magazine, which I did a fellowship at the first year out of Gordon. And when I was at Gordon, I studied communication arts and history.
Excellent, excellent. And Sarah, would you mind sharing a little bit about you?
Of course. Yes, I am the art director at Christianity Today magazine, CT magazine, more familiarly known. But yes, a typical art director works with photographers, illustrators, different people to decide what, pictures or artwork is going to go with the articles in a magazine. So I work really closely with editors to determine what the content is going to be for the magazine, and then I get to assign artwork to photographers, to illustrators all around the world, which is really fun. And then because of the size of CT being a small nonprofit ministry, I also get to do all of the graphic design and layout.
Awesome. Great. Thank you all. It's really neat to hear all the different ways that kind of God has led you since your time at Gordon. It's really neat to hear that. I'd love to hear, we're going to kind of start back in your Gordon years. So just come back a few years with me. I'd love to hear kind of how you prepared yourself during your time at Gordon. What were you doing either on your own, maybe with, at that time, maybe it was the Career Center that was there, or maybe it's with faculty members. What different things were you doing to prepare yourself for just post-graduation, whatever that was going to be? I'm wondering, Andrew, do you have anything to start us off with there?
Sure, I'll give you an easy answer. And what I did to prepare was nothing. I didn't really prepare for a career. And what I knew that I wanted to do was not to teach music, which is what my mom did and what sort of how I got into music in the first place. But I didn't really have a clear path. I liked performing. I wanted to perform. I had no idea what that entailed. And really until I worked at the Pittsburgh CLO and learned, worked auditions and saw people coming through and saw how many different things they had to do in order to get work and things like that. It wasn't until then that I really understood what a performance career was like or what it was about. I was prepared to go on to grad school, and that's about it, which is not what I did. So I ended up at Barnes & Noble for 8 years. But, I learned a lot there too. So, I mean, my takeaway is, there are so many things you can do beyond what you're aware of. So you have to seek them out. And I wish I had done that. But also, you can end up at Barnes & Noble or wherever, and you can still, find fulfillment and things like that. So don't worry.
That's great. And clearly you have an amazing job at this point too, that has a lot of different varied responsibilities for the organization, a really important piece for them to be able to have someone in a fundraising capacity.
Sure.
Yeah, that's great. Amber, what about for yourself? How did you prepare or attempt to prepare yourself at the college level?
I was probably overly involved at Gordon. I did a lot of everything, a little bit of everything. So I did GCSA, I did CEC, the Economics and Business Organization. I did an internship. So I did the tartan. So throughout my years, I kind of tried different things. I was always drawn to a communications major. I thought I wanted to be a journalist, and then kind of along the way figured out maybe more PR and marketing was what I was interested in. And so doing GCSA, I got, some good teamwork, some nice experience that way. CEC with the event planning, the tartan. obviously with writing and the layout and design. So kind of tapping into all aspects of a communications major as opposed to just focusing in on one opportunity.
Oh, that's great. Dr. Gardner, I'm wondering if you'd be willing to kind of lean into this one for us too. Just what is often kind of your advice for students within your department for best steps? And I know we probably could both agree that each year it would be a different step or a different set of steps, but really love to hear your advice on this particular topic.
Yeah, happy to share about that. In fact, right now, this topic is very top of mind. I teach our senior seminar class for communication arts, and like just a couple of hours ago, I was doing some of our senior exit interviews. So we were talking about all these kinds of things. Well, one of the things that maybe this is different from when you all were on campus, this was actually fairly new when I started at Gordon, but communication arts agreed just a few years ago to make the internship a requirement for our degree. And I think that's one of the really important changes that we made within the department, because that opportunity just to try it out, to apply the stuff that you're learning in the classroom out in what we'd say the real world, not that Gordon isn't the real world, but in the professional world, it makes such a huge difference. So one of the things that now I don't have to advise students to do it because it's a requirement for our major is to get that internship. So not just one, but like 2 internships at least. So one that they do for credit, there's a class that goes along with that. But I also talk to students about selecting an internship that is like sometimes I call it the wild card internship. Like pick that topic area or that professional area that you think, maybe I'm kind of interested in it, but I don't know, because it's a fail-safe way to rule it out. So you can try it and be like, I thought I liked it, but nope, that confirms it, crossed off my list. Because sometimes students can be really surprised. For myself, I thought I wanted to go to law school. I did an internship at a law firm downtown Seattle. It was near where I was going to school. I really thought that's what I wanted to do. And it turns out I hated it. And it was such a good opportunity for me to discover that as an intern, as opposed to making that huge investment of starting a law school and realizing that wasn't for me. So the internship, I think, is so key for that vocational discovery. To do that while you're at Gordon, certainly ComArts, we require it, but do it even beyond that. Pick those ones that you think might be the wild card professional field for you, and you might be surprised.
I love that. I love the wild card piece of that, Christy. That's really exciting to just any student to try something that maybe they wouldn't otherwise have tried or thought that was too much of a reach. So that's great advice. So I love to hear that's how the department has continued to evolve and develop. So exciting.
Definitely.
Sarah, I'd love to hear from you. You know, that's it, the response to that same question, because I think it's really fun to hear what's required of the department now, but then still what paths people have been on that maybe still led them, you know, to the positions you currently have, even if it wasn't right along the exact path that we might always have. So Sarah, what were some of the things you did at Gordon during your time there?
Well, I was probably the opposite of Amber. I probably should have been a little bit more involved. I tried here and there, but I honestly, one regret I have is that I did not take advantage of more of the opportunities that Gordon offers. I think that it's a unique time in your life where you are in a strong community. You will not have that experience again. You will not have those resources again. And so I think I did about what was minimally required of me in terms of like seeking a career path. This was also like at a time, I'm dating myself here, but when the internet wasn't as big of a factor. Like now there's so much more that you have to invest in, like online profiles and portfolios and things like that. And that just wasn't a thing when I was in college. But I will say, like on the positive side, one thing that a professor said to me once was, he said, I can tell that you like have this desire to learn, like that you thirst for learning. He goes, never give that up. Always, you know, seek to learn. And I think that was one thing I did do at Gordon is I tried to do like a double minor. I took all the classes, you know, I majored in communications with like a film track, but then I did art, I did English. I, you know, threw myself into like every possible interest that I had on an academic level. And I think that that actually really did help me kind of get some skills and some knowledge that I can see today. You know, I use writing and reading and like my knowledge of English for not necessarily speaking all the time, but you know, in my job all the time, working with editors and content and reading and processing that information. When my art has really helped me, obviously being an art director, working with artists, creating my own art, communications just as a broad degree really helps teach you a lot of personal and like life skills that you need. So I think overall, like I look back at the education piece of my Gordon experience as something that I have truly carried through all of my experiences beyond graduation, and something that I can look back and say, I did that right, at least. But I would encourage you, I did the like, I can't even remember all my extracurriculars, but one thing I started was like the Gordon Film Society, which probably is long gone. I don't know, but
no, not at all. You
oh,
started
really?
that, Sarah? That's awesome.
I was well. That was my first logo that I did. That is hopefully long gone, but that was when I kind of helped me realize that I wanted to do design, because I joined that society to kind of, you know, we would put on events and make films, and that's where I kind of realized, like you said, Dr. Gardner, just not good at film. So it was a good experience to realize, like, this is maybe not what I should be doing, but in designing the programs and the logo and working with that group of people on putting together events, I kind of figured out where my passion and my skills lied, and that was, I think, really beneficial. So.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Paul, love to hear the same response from you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add, honestly.
Okay,
They covered
great.
it.
Great, excellent. So then you can kick me off with the next question. Love to hear kind of what does a professional day in the life of Paul look like?
Oh gosh. Well, these days it's sitting at my parents' dining room table because I came down to Tampa to, you know, everyone's working remote these days. So I actually came down to Tampa because the Stanley Cup Finals were happening, and I wanted to be here for the parade and all that stuff because, of course, I had the utmost confidence in my Lightning to win it all, which they did. And so I hang out and I sit on my computer and I watch TV. And that's basically how it worked even before the pandemic. I monitor lots of things, news wires and Twitter and things like that, all while watching cable news. And if you've watched more than 5 minutes of cable news recently, you know that it completely rots your brain. So I basically watch cable news so you don't have to. The idea of the War Room is that we do media monitoring, and we watch like the boring town hall events that candidates do and things like that, basically waiting for someone to slip up so we can make fun of them. And that is pretty boring some days because you are, you know, engaging with politicians who are, you know, politicians, and you're dealing with media types who are all very full of themselves and don't really actually have anything insightful to say, even though they're convinced they're super insightful. So maintaining a certain level of positivity or even sanity can be a little bit hard, especially when Washington is like it is today, which, as you might have noticed, is a little bit crazy. And so I am always sort of being pulled in different directions depending on what's the breaking news and all that sort of thing. And it's a fun time, mainly because I really like the people I work with. But media itself can be a little bit of a hard industry sometimes because the people who sort of the way that you get ahead in media is to just sort of get attention rather than to have the most rigorous and quality work, which can be frustrating sometimes because I see people who are super great at what they do and they're like obscure, and then I see people who are terrible at what they do or are really famous, and it's kind of frustrating. But all in all, I mean, I'm just taking in tons of information all the time and trying to find useful things for the Free Beacon that I can kind of get out of that information. So it's a high level of information consumption is basically how my day works.
Well, I have to say, you have like the coolest title in the world.
Yeah, that comes from campaign world. So Bill Clinton famously set up a war room in the White House, and it was like, oh my gosh, that's really interesting because that's kind of like a campaign thing. And the idea is that your war room fights all the battles that come up on a daily basis. You know, oh, they're attacking the candidate for this. You know, how do we defend ourselves? And the war room is meant to like do the rapid response to kind of get to that. And we sort of jury-rigged something that's sort of like that in a journalistic context, where the idea is to just sort of be on top of things and to have specific target areas that we're trying to focus on, specific candidates and issues and things like that.
Well, thank you. Sarah, what does a day in the life of Sarah at work look like?
A little bit of a different, more like a monthly war room. Things are still pretty fast paced, even with our issue cycle is month to month. Just lots to manage. But I would say it's pretty like cool what I get to do. Like I'm really thankful where I am these days. Just everything from like today I had phone calls with a photographer and a videographer. I emailed with an illustrator about a future cover. I started working on some design work for our next issue and actually starting like the layout and some of the concepts. Talked with the whole entire team about, you know, what we're all doing today and, you know, what's happening in the world and the news. And so it's a lot of collaboration, a lot of Slack and Zoom these days, just going back and forth with colleagues and working out different things, you know, working with the managing editor on planning the issue and how many pages go to each article and, you know, what we think about each piece and how it's going to shape up. So it really is kind of fun, and I get such a wide variety, and I really do enjoy reading the articles and getting to work with different creative people who, you know, just all different backgrounds, all different faiths and interests, and that really is an enjoyable part of my job.
Awesome. Amber, what about for you?
Well, my day-to-day right now is, and for this entire year, has been very different than what I usually do. So before March, I commuted into Boston every day. Our offices are right next to South Station. I haven't actually been to my desk since March. And so it's been an adjustment, just getting used to our team working remotely. We rely heavily on Zoom now, and we probably send twice as many emails and IMs than we ever did, because you're not getting that interpersonal communication that you're really used to with the face-to-face. My focus for the past 6 months has really been on COVID response. As an insurance company, we, along with many national companies and regional companies, were asked by our customers to give some money back to them because everyone stopped driving for at least a good portion of this year. So figuring out how we were going to deal with the communication aspect of that, with our customers, with our agents, with the people selling our insurance. So that was definitely a unique new day-to-day ask of me. And then in a usual world where sports exists and fans can go, I work with the Bruins, so I'm very disappointed to hear there's a Tampa Bay fan on this call. Kicked us out of our run to Stanley Cup, very disappointed.
When you took us out in that 7-game series, I had to cry myself to sleep. So, you know, it's very, very important that we get one back on you guys.
Okay, we'll allow it this year. But so yeah, the Bruins, the Patriots, the New York Yankees, the New Jersey Devils, and Penn State University are the teams that we have very unique relationships with. We work with them to pass along special fan benefits to our customers who join. And so I'm, for the most part, the day-to-day with those sports teams. And this year, with the lack of sports, we've been trying to figure out make good so that 2021 is our best year yet. And then also clawbacks, because we can't just roll over all of the benefits that we would usually enjoy. So negotiating getting money back from sports teams proves to be very, very interesting. Yeah.
Thank you, Amber. Good luck with that too.
Yeah, thanks.
Andrew, what about for you? What does day-to-day work look like for you?
Good question. There is not really a normal day-to-day routine for me. And I mean, pre-COVID, I had more of a normal routine. So since that's what my job is, I'll tell you about that a little bit, which is basically, like I like to say that I have successfully made a fundraising career without ever asking anyone for money. Because what I do is sort of back-end development work, which is so specifically for our campaign, that is like managing prospect lists, doing research on people to see, you know, their databases, scary sometimes, that show, you know, how much, you know, money people have or properties they have, anything that's public knowledge you can find. And so it's sort of preparing that so that the president or one of our gift officers can make an ask based on that. But I will take, you know, we have these lists of people divided up into, you know, phases, and I would take and say, okay, here's the next 5 people, and I kind of queue up the chairman of our board or the president to go make an ask. But because of COVID, our entire campaign has been on hold. So I've been doing completely different work. So some grant writing, some event planning, and working on fall appeals, other standard fundraising things. So.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. Dr. Gardner, I'm wondering if I can throw kind of an interesting question your way. You know, we've heard from these 4 alums in terms of what their day-to-day looks like. What do you hear from maybe very new alums, or what kind of conversations do you have with near graduates in terms of what they expect their day-to-day to look like? And where are some of the holes sometimes, I guess, in terms of what reality really is and what maybe current students are thinking their day-to-day is going to look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think everything is just different now, right? I mean, so COVID time, it's different for all of us in so many ways. So I think in some ways, I think the graduates just from 2020 and the ones that I'm working with right now, 2021 grads, I think have perhaps more realistic expectation in a way, because we're all living in this kind of altered universe. I would say prior to the pandemic, I would say that some graduates or soon to be graduates, I think maybe had a rosier expectation of what those first jobs out of college would look like. You know, you're armed with this degree, you've been at Gordon for 4 years, you know, you're ready to take on the world. And then when that first job happens, maybe it's not the ideal job, and maybe it's not even on the pathway to the ideal job. And I think some of the, what would we call it? The drudgery, the day-to-day, just the workiness of work, sometimes surprises graduates. And I think now maybe because of the difficulties that we're all experiencing, I think maybe their views are a little bit more realistic. But I think it's helpful to hear from some of our alums that sometimes work is just work. There's just hard stuff that you have to do. It's not all fun and glamorous. And yet that doesn't mean that you aren't at the center of God's call on your life. So I think somehow putting those things together, sometimes there can be a disjointedness for students, that they have to get out into that first job and they realize there's kind of a shock, kind of jumping into the icy waters. But then maybe they realize, oh yeah, maybe God hasn't left me. Maybe he still does have a plan for my life, even if it's not their plan for their life. I think maybe that's part of it.
Thank you so much. That is my perfect segue. I couldn't have asked for a better one. Sarah, I'm going to ask you this question. I think what I'll do for these next few questions, I'll ask 2 of you, and then I'll kind of switch the next question to ask 2 more of you. But Sarah, I'd love to hear kind of that same, like, what was your expectations and were they met or not at all after graduation. And then I'd love for you to speak to that calling on your life from God. Did you still feel called in the midst of, you know, those first few years after graduation?
Oh man, yeah. What you said, Dr. Gardner, really just resonated with me and my story. So I'll start at the beginning. Gordon, my first job out of college was as a waitress. So it was not glamorous. And my first official job was at a design firm, which, yes, was very much not the kind of work that I'm doing today. It was very much, you know, doing my boss's bidding, sending a lot of emails, answering phones, doing all the stuff he didn't want to do. And then I've worked at, you know, design firms. I worked at a church. I went to seminary for a brief period. I've done freelance, and every single job has its moments where you're like, I can't believe I get to do this. This is really fun. And then it has those moments where you're like, I can't believe how bad like this is, or how hard this is, or like, you know, I just want to quit. And even though like what I'm doing right now, it took me a while to like find this job. Like I was, you know, 10 years out of school before I found what I considered to be like, oh, this is like exactly what I want to be doing. I mean, and I think getting there was so much God's hand and so much knowing that he was there for me, because I feel like each step of the way, there was something in me that said it's time, or that nudged me, or whenever I was questioning it, I could, you know, sense that God was there in that moment, saying, not necessarily you have to do this or this is required of you, but like, I'm inviting you to this. And so kind of paying attention to his voice and his presence, I think really helped kind of orchestrate where I went. And there was definitely a lot of ups and downs to get here. And I still, you know, on a day-to-day, my COVID existence is I get to do all of the stuff that I told you today while I'm wrangling 2 3.5-year-olds. So it is definitely not always glamorous. Work can always be frustrating. I always think of the verse in Genesis about how when God gives the curse, he says, you will toil and the earth will not be friendly. And so I think no matter what your job is, the earth will not be friendly. There will be hard people to work with. There will be, the reason I was on the phone with a photographer today is because a photo shoot was just blowing up. I mean, it just really like, there are so many moments of that drudgery, but I think it's just reminding yourself of, okay, what do I feel is my purpose? What do I want to do? What do I want to offer this world? And what do I want to offer to God? And if this is the expression of how I do it, then I'm just going to keep at it and until he tells me otherwise.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I appreciate that. That's really helpful. Paul, I'd love to hear, you know, your kind of thoughts on the same question. Particularly, you know, you and Sarah are probably about a little over 10 years apart in graduation. So you've graduated a little bit more recently. I'm
sorry, I lost connection with you.
Call that God has in your life.
Sorry, Amy. I missed the last like 20 seconds of what you said. I apologize.
No problem. It looks like my connection's getting a little funky, so sorry for that. Just your continued kind of sense of God's call in your life, even in these first few years after graduation.
Yeah. So it's hard. I've heard, you know, supposedly the most stressed out time of your life is like your early 20s when you're starting out in the professional world. And I would say I'm extremely lucky given the fact that I've been employed and I've worked with people that I want to be working with, and at both places that I've worked, and that is something I'm really thankful for. God's sort of seeing God's hand kind of in my life is pretty difficult, I would say, for me, given the fact that in media, and I sort of alluded to this earlier, you can always look at the superior influence that other people have who are not doing the right thing with their influence. And so, and it's a zero-sum game in the sense that like eyeballs are eyeballs. And so if you see your job in media as having as influencing the world with information in a good way, you're going to inform people and they're going to make better decisions because they've been informed by this, you know, quality journalism that you've done. You're constantly running up against the fact that there's people who are doing terrible journalism, who are lying to their viewers and their readers and things like that, who are, you know, immensely more popular than you and the people that you work with. And this is a bit of a challenge for me. I have a little bit of a crusader kind of activist in me, I think, like a lot of people in media. And I am always tempering that because it's not my job at the end of the day to be an activist. But a lot of people in media do believe that. And so they will, you know, twist the facts or manipulate their viewers or whatever to try to get the result that they want, to try to create the effect that they want. And maybe they just want more viewers. Maybe they just want to be successful. Maybe they want to influence the public toward a particular, you know, outcome politically. But there's a constant sense that everybody is fighting for influence. And if you look at it that way, you're going to be pretty depressed because you're going to sort of, at least if you're someone of my opinions, I suppose, you're going to sort of look up at the sky and be like, you know, are there 10 good men in the city? You know, no offense, Washington, D.C., you're not exactly Sodom and Gomorrah, but there are times where it's sort of like, why are the most powerful people in the city the worst people? Like, why is it that we seem to have found our worst people and made them, you know, put them up at the perches of the highest levels of authority, both in politics and in media? And you have to just take a step back and realize that God is in control and that doing the right thing on this story might not have anything like the influence of, you know, tonight's episode of Tucker Carlson Tonight or whatever. And yet doing it right is the right thing to do. And that small correct thing done over and over and over the course of years and decades will eventually lead to good results for the country, for the world, etc. Even if you just look around and are thinking in terms of, you know, short term and what's happening now, you look around and you see, oh, this is bad. This is all, you know, there's so much influence from people who aren't doing the right thing, and it's very easy to be depressed by that. And if you just, to me, God is constantly showing me how doing the right thing because it's the right thing without an expectation of immediate reward is basically how everyone who's done good in the world has behaved. You don't do the right thing and then see your ratings shoot up and you become super popular and things like that. I mean, sometimes there's an example of like a Billy Graham, someone who does something good for the world and becomes famous or well known for it. But that's not actually how the world works most of the time. And usually God is using lowly people and things like that, people who aren't big names, etc. And so seeing that in the Bible and seeing that like in church history and things like that is how I maintain like, or it's how God maintains like this faith in me that like, it's important to keep on, even though if you look at the industry, sometimes it can be, you know, pretty depressing.
Paul, thank you so much. We know how to pray for you and the work that you're in and doing, and just it's such an encouragement to know someone from Gordon is in that world and is trying to keep that consistent presence in our media because we need people like you that are out there. So just thank you for doing that, and thank you for hearing that call, and we'll continue to pray for you in that calling. I want to, at this point, I do also want to invite any of our viewers to text in any questions that they may have. It could either be for the whole group, it could be for Dr. Gardner, it could be for an individual person, but we certainly want to invite everyone to just text into into the Q&A section, to the chat, and I'll be happy to moderate those and share those with all of our panelists. The next question that I have for folks is, and I'm going to direct this over to Andrew first. I'd love to hear from you, Andrew. What type of skills do you feel like someone needs to be equipped with or prepared with to enter kind of the world that you are a part of, kind of that fundraising development industry, if you will, that part of things, which is a really wonderful piece. I think this is also a good piece, and maybe Dr. Gardner can speak to this after you're done too, is just ministry is such an interesting area that, you know, for many, many years, I think folks thought, okay, it's only Christian men majors that will go into ministry, or, you know, it's only the biblical and theological study majors that will go into that. But there's so many needs within a ministry. So I love that piece, but I'd love to hear from you, Andrew, specifically about what kind of skill sets do you think folks need to develop to be able to do the type of work that you do?
Well, I would say, you know, that's right on also that that would apply to arts organizations as well. Like if you're looking at a theater or a museum, you know, they all need marketing, they all need development, they all need all of those things. The primary skill that I think, especially in fundraising development, is like how to relate to people. And I think really in any profession, you can't do better than learn how to relate to people. When I come back to the time I spent, whether it's Barnes and Noble, you know, Pittsburgh CLO, or the CCO, the thing that always stands out to me is the people I worked with, or the customers I had, or the donors and supporters that I worked with. And, you know, more and more what I, you know, and I think as would be echoed throughout conversations of racial and social justice right now, one of the most important skills is listening, you know, understanding where people are coming from. And that's just key to building relationships.
That's great. Very good. Thank you. Dr. Gardner, would you mind speaking to maybe two questions for you now? Just kind of, again, those different things within ministry and or nonprofits that you could help us understand just what kind of work is available in either ministry and or nonprofits. But I love what Andrew's talking about in terms of relating to people, listening to people. These are such valuable skill sets. How do you practice those? How do you get stronger at doing those things?
Yeah, well, let me take the first part. And Andrew, I'm so grateful that you talked about both that interpersonal side of stuff and the listening. You're right. It's just so important. And increasingly we're talking about that, not just teaching students public speaking, but how do you listen? And it seems like we need to do maybe more of the listening than the speaking publicly, socially today. But when, Amy, to your question about that role of communication in nonprofits or in ministry, the other side to it too, in addition to those good interpersonal skills, is especially when we talk about fundraising or advancement for nonprofits or ministries, you have to be able to tell a story. Stories are so important in communicating the mission or the vision of an institution or a nonprofit with those potential donors or supporters. In fact, this is very timely. Coming up on Friday in COM 205, Perspectives on Communication, we are studying the narrative paradigm. I don't know if any of you studied that, COM 205, Walter Fisher. But it still holds true, this idea that people need good reasons. And more often than not, people make decisions like decisions where to spend your money, or to support this organization or that one, based not on like logical, statistical kind of evidence, but really on compelling stories. Now, in the wrong hands, of course, as Paul was even suggesting, that can become manipulative, but truly what we're teaching at Gordon is the ability to craft powerful narratives. And so our students who then go on and work, particularly in those areas of ministry or nonprofit, find that they were using all of those basic kind of artsy skills. So whether it's the filmmaking, so in today's day and age, all the social media content creation, the editing, all of the writing, all of that kind of stuff, it is all to the purpose of telling a story. So I would add that. So the interpersonal stuff, as well as the ability to craft compelling narratives, is really important. And I know you've had a second question. What was that one, Amy? Remind me.
Yes, the second one. Now I'm going to forget it.
Oh no. Or you can go on, come back to it.
We'll get to that one.
Yeah.
We actually have a couple questions that came in as well. So Amber, one specifically for you, if you don't mind. One of our students would like to know if you could speak to your experience as a presidential fellow. Wanted to know what the application process was like and how did this program set you up for success. Now I'll pause really quick because I'm not sure if all of our panelists know what the Presidential Fellow program is. So this is a program that President Lindsay started that is modeled after the White House Fellows. So it's a really wonderful opportunity for an upperclassman student, typically a junior or senior, to be assigned to a cabinet officer at the college for the year. And so they get a really wonderful hands-on experience working alongside of a cabinet officer, but also a cohort experience. So the presidential fellows together do a lot of learning together. In past years, they've traveled together to really have some really wonderful broad experiences. So I'll stop there and I'll let Amber kind of take it from here.
Hey, the application process, I mean, I know it was tough. I know that I had to do like a handful of interviews. I had to be very secretive. You couldn't tell people if you made it to the next round. It was a very neat experience, very challenging. But I mean, I loved my presidential fellow experience. I got to work in Rick Sweeney's office, the VP of communications at Gordon. Great guy. Hey, we're still in touch. I was actually speaking to his class last week. So it gave me a really nice peek into what more of a corporate communications would feel, even at a higher, in higher education. And I ended up going on to get my master's in corporate and organizational communications, based on a lot of the conversations that were had in his office and the people I got to meet, and just seeing how he carried himself as a Gordon grad who did some time in insurance, got his master's, and then ended up back at Gordon. So if you are considering applying for the program, I highly recommend it. It definitely gets you unique experiences that you won't get anywhere else in the college. You work very closely with your cohorts on different projects. We did do a trip to Texas, my one and only time to Texas. So that was a nice flight together. So yeah, I highly encourage you to seek out that opportunity. And I know you can, apply, I think, as a junior and senior. So even if you don't get it junior year, go for it again senior year. It's definitely worth it.
Yes, I recommend going for it as well. I think part of it too, a lot of times folks who apply to be fellows, even those who do not get it, sometimes other opportunities open up for them because, different folks around campus see that initiative and interest in that program just being a very highly regarded. Dr. Gardner, would you speak to kind of that program as it relates to, you're talking about resumes and preparation. How does this program fit in to all the advice that you offer?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I could add much more than what Amber said, because I just would echo all of that to say that really is just a unique experience. So like for comm arts majors, certainly that off-campus internship is required. But the presidential fellows, I think that unique part is both the application process, which is really different than just getting a regular job internship. It's very extensive. And then also that cohort. I think that's the other piece. So working with someone like Rick Sweeney is just a fantastic kind of inside look at that kind of corporate or organizational communication, but then also getting to work with the other presidential fellows. I think it's, like Amber said, it's just a unique experience. So yeah, if you're thinking of whoever's asking the question, if you're thinking of applying, even just that process of applying, I would imagine you would learn a lot. Even if you're not successful in securing that presidential fellow that year, but just that process, I would imagine, would be a great learning experience.
Great, thank you. Amber, I was wondering if you could also weigh in on the question that I had previously, which was just what type of skill sets do you see would be useful in your particular industry?
Yeah, so in my industry, I would definitely say being willing to try new things and have an open mind about multiple things. Whereas a lot of what we see in communications is focusing in on one unique aspect of it. And that is totally great for various careers. But for corporate communications, the opportunity that you will have to jump in on different projects as they pop up, you can pull from the different skill sets you may have developed. So in doing, the tartan, figuring out how to write persuasively. In doing CEC, I had the opportunity to plan some events at Gordon. And now I'm planning large events for our customers, for our agents. My hand is on a lot of different things. And so I think a willingness to learn and be open to the various aspects of communications, and then to volunteer yourself for things you may not necessarily have experience, but you're willing to learn. Because, again, with COVID, I never thought I would be doing COVID response. I don't think any of us thought our lives would be like this. But jumping in when the company was in need of someone to really take that on and head that on gave me a great opportunity, and it helped our team tremendously.
Thank you so much, Amber. I really love this next question that was submitted because it just takes our last question in kind of a slightly different direction. So I'm actually going to ask Andrew to be the first one to respond to it, which is, what is the most important trait that a person should possess? So just generally, what is the most important trait that a person should possess?
I don't think there is one. I mean, like, everybody's done a million different personality tests and everything like that. I hate them all. But there is one, the Strengthsfinder, which I actually appreciated because it highlights the things that you were good at. And I think especially, we talk about this at the CCO all the time, because especially within a Christian circle, we tend to say, like, what are the things that we're not good at? How can we improve? But it's what are you good at? Like that, that plays into what career you're seeking, and the traits that you have are probably good for that career. So, like, there's not one trait that you need. It's what are your strengths, and how do you, build on those towards whatever it is that you want to do.
Yeah, I love that. I think I think we all do work in teams, and you kind of figure out how your team operates, figuring out those different strengths. And I know that has been a huge learning piece for me in the last 3 or 4 years too, is just realizing, oh man, there are some people that we can work a little bit more collaboratively and creatively when we really play into those different strengths that each person has, and or learn from the folks with the strengths that we may not possess.
Right. I will throw one thing out for you though, which is, we always talk about leadership and management all the time as well. And, people are always saying leadership is not a skill set. And my response is always, but management is. And so, like, just about everybody at some point will manage somebody. And you need to approach that knowing that just because, like for me, it was selling books at Barnes & Noble. Just because I was a good bookseller did not mean that I was a good manager. And I had to learn, a whole different skill set for how to work with direct reports and things like that. So, you know, it doesn't matter what profession you choose, whether it's art, music, media. If you're going to manage people, you have to know that it's a different skill set, and you need to, you know, figure out how to do that before you alienate all the people that are reporting to you, which is easy to do.
No, that's hard. Sarah, what would you think is an important trait that one should possess?
I think no matter what you do, be kind. Just be kind, right? I mean, emails, Slack messages, how you talk to your coworkers, how you talk to outside people. I just think the people that I interact with that just add that measure of kindness and grace, like, it just opens up a world of possibility that I think that you don't have if you're, you know, mean or aggressive or not understanding. And I just think the people that stop and take the time to try to understand each other and to be kind to one another, it just diffuses all kinds of problems. So as hard as it can be sometimes, it doesn't mean be a doormat. It doesn't mean let people push you over, but no matter what the situation or who you interact with, if you're just be kind, you will go far.
Great, thank you so much. So last question. So Paul, I'm coming to you, and then Amber, you get to answer this one too, okay? And this will be our last round. So do you learn more personally from success or failure? This is a good question we just got from another one of our students. So Paul, first.
I would need to have some success to compare and contrast, but no, I think the truth is you learn more from failure. That doesn't mean that you should try to fail all the time, but it just means that learning experiences happen through sort of struggle and failure more so than success, because when you're succeeding, it means that the stuff you learned beforehand is bearing fruit, basically. And so when you do fail, it's not a good thing. You shouldn't be happy about it. You're not going to be happy about it, most likely. But you need to just accept that the trade-off that you're making is that you now get to learn from it in a way that you couldn't if you had succeeded. And I sort of think it's important to look at life as trade-offs rather than, you know, just these crazy peaks and valleys. It's better to sort of look at things in terms of pros and cons. And that's the pro of failing, is that now you've got more stuff that you can learn.
Yeah. Amber, how would you like to respond to that question?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with all of that. I think failure gives you two kinds of opportunities. One is definitely to learn from your mistakes, because a lot of the mistakes you will make, they will be ingrained in your memory, and you won't make those mistakes again, and you will move forward from that. And the other element of failure is new opportunities may come to you. So my junior year, I ran for class president to be the president of GCSA senior year, and I lost in the election, and I was shocked. But if I hadn't lost in that election junior year to be senior year president, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to be a presidential fellow. So there's going to be times where you think this is what you're meant to do. You're really positive this is the way you're going to go, and that door is going to shut. But one thing I always like to say is, even if the door is shut, there's usually a window out. So you'll find that next opportunity, no matter how hard failure hits you.
Amber, what a perfect way for us to end the evening. Thank you for that great picture of hope that we have in the different things and experiences. Does look like I got one more, but what I will do, because I know we're out of time and just want to appreciate everybody's time here, that I will send this question to you all over email. If anybody has time to respond back and your thoughts, I'd be really grateful for you to do that. So just want to thank all of our panelists. Dr. Gardner, thank you for your good advice and help in the conversation this evening. It was wonderful to have you with us. Sarah, Andrew, Paul, Amber, just thank you so much for taking the time out of your evenings to be able to spend it with Gordon College and with some Gordon students. We really are appreciative of the experiences that you have and the advice that you're able to give us, and to be a part of our very first Alumni Talk, Media and the Arts. So really grateful for all this. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and thank you students for taking the time to be here too. Have a great
Thanks, Amy.
day, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.